Hey everybody, Jillian here, and I'm going to talk to you about something that's kind of interesting. A simple way to have dessert or anything that's really high sugar and high carbohydrate and not really anything else, and how to eat it without it blowing everything out of the water if you have insulin resistance. And this is, maybe if you're somebody that has PCOS or you have diabetes or you've been told you were insulin resistant. And if you've learned about this and why this even matters, if you are somebody who's insulin resistant, it does make it harder to lose weight. And insulin is a fat storage hormone. So if you're insulin resistant, the last thing that you want to do is cause your body to produce more insulin in response to eating carbohydrate foods. And anything that is high sugar, like a dessert or a sweet or candy, or just simple carbs like, chips and all the little snacky foods, all of those things are going to create an insulin response in your body, and it's going to make it that much worse if you are somebody who has insulin resistance, because you're just going to make it worse every time your pancreas shoots out insulin. So I was doing a little bit of research earlier today, and I found something that was kind of cool, and I've heard it before, but not really in this way. And there's actually kind of two suggestions. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the glycemic index, and basically the glycemic index, and you may have heard the low glycemic index diet, and that diet, and I'll tell you kind of in a really quick snapshot why that diet doesn't really work. But that diet is basically comparing every food and everything we eat to a slice of bread, because a slice of white bread is basically a glycemic index of 100. It means it's going to shoot your blood sugar up the fastest. And so keep that in mind. Now, when you have something sweet, there was a study that showed they did it with rice pudding because it made sense. If you put a lot of cinnamon on it, it actually lowered the insulin response. I think it was by 22%. So they found that that has to be a lot. So it had to be a teaspoon and a half. And I don't know if you've ever eaten a teaspoon and a half of cinnamon at one time. It's a lot if you're having rice pudding. So you would kind of have to have a lot on your rice pudding, or maybe better yet, put it in a capsule. And you can actually buy empty capsules on Amazon and just take it like that. Maybe put some of it in there and take it. You can actually buy them pre-filled as well. And then put some of it on your dessert. A lot of desserts just go well with cinnamon. So I was talking to somebody today, and he asked about having baked apples with cinnamon on it for dessert, just as a healthy alternative. So kind of get creative with it, because cinnamon it's a really easy spice that you can get a hold of. I know some of you use essential oils. That probably would work too. But the study was specifically on just the cinnamon spice, and I think everybody can get a hold of that. The other thing is that they talked about was, and this is why the glycemic index diet doesn't really work. So the glycemic index diet is all based on eating foods that are low on that glycemic index scale, which means when you eat it, your body's not going to increase an insulin response. And the thing is, though, is that let's say you had a slice of white bread, and it's supposed to raise your blood sugar the fastest, the highest. But the second you eat that slice of white bread with something else, it changes the glycemic index of that slice of white bread. And if you eat, whatever food it is, if you start combining foods, it all changes. So the key here is, if you are going to eat something that is a potato chip, it really applies to snacks the most, because that's when we tend to eat one single food. At meals, it all changes, and we tend to eat combination foods. But if you're going to eat carbohydrates, and especially the ones that are the most simple, refined carbs, to always have it with some kind of a protein or some kind of a fiber, because then it gives your body something else to work through, and it slows the absorption of that carb down. There is, the company that I'm affiliated with, we have something called carb blockers, which is the same concept. The carb blockers are just a white kidney bean extract that slows the absorption down of that food. Because if you're having something that's just a snack or just a dessert, then you're probably not going to have some cheese with it. You're probably not going to have some deli meat with it to slow the absorption down, and it makes sense to add a supplement like that. But if you're just having a meal, this is why eating a spaghetti meal is not a good idea if you're not going to balance it out with a nice salad or some meat sauce. You really have to have, this is why we always talk about balanced meals and why you should have all of the food groups, especially the protein, and think of pasta as more of a side dish, not the main dish. We tend to want to do a big plate of spaghetti and a garlic bread and maybe vegetables if we think about it. And if you're somebody who's really working to eat healthy and have a plant-based diet, you have to shift that plate around, especially if you have insulin resistance. So think about that next time. Next time you eat, if you have dessert, think about cinnamon. So kind of a really easy way to think about that. And when you do eat, always couple, there is some truth to food combining, so to speak, is to have it with protein or fiber, even fat, because all of those things get digested much slower than carbohydrates. So hopefully, whenever I'm in the sun, I'm tapping my screen because I can't see myself anymore. But hopefully you found that helpful. And if you want to know more about food combining or anything I've said, feel free to reach out to me. And otherwise, have a good evening. And I'm probably be on tomorrow. And anyways, talk to you later. Bye.